Okay, it says preparing live stream, so just one moment. Okay, just adding a title. Okay, I think it's starting now. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mindful Nurses. My name is Janelle, co-founder of Mindful Nurses, together with Claudia Wong. And this is our Wellness Wednesday series. And we host this series to support nurses' mental health and well-being through mindfulness, holistic wellness, and self-care practices. And we're super happy to have Stef Martens here with us today to share with us about the science of happiness. Stef is a former international development worker who has turned life coach and yoga teacher, and she specializes in the science of happiness, and she's going to be sharing with us a little bit about happiness today. So I will turn it over to her. We're super happy to have you, Stef. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle and Claudia, for having me. I'm super excited to share what I've been learning. I've been learning about the science of happiness for about 6 months. So as I was telling you a little bit earlier, I've comprised 6 months of information in less than an hour. So bear with me, let's see how it goes. And please feel free to take notes just in case you have any questions further. You can DM me and I'll be more than happy to answer them. So I've prepared a presentation which will be recorded, right? So you guys will have access to it anytime. And yeah, I'm ready to start. So yeah, should I share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead and start. You can share screen.
Okay, here we go. Share screen. Yeah, do you see it? Is it? Yes. Okay, cool. So what I try to do, because my bachelor's is in biology, my master's was in international development. So I try to merge science and spirituality. And these studies that I'm doing with the Happiness Studies Academy, if you guys want to research it, it's very science-based too. So I'm merging that also with my experience living in Bali and studying yoga in India and different workshops and et cetera, et cetera. Let's not get into that. So basically, what comprises the science of happiness is the understanding that the aim of life is, and it ought to be, a whole person well-being. What does this mean? This means experiencing wholeness and well-being through maximizing the spiral elements. So I'm going to break this down. So happiness shouldn't be pursued directly. The way we should pursue happiness is indirectly. People that actually wake up and say, I want to be happy, or that are constantly focused on being happy, they usually are rating their happiness levels in a lower way. So what we need to do is maximize our well-being in 5 elements, which are the spiral elements. That's It's an acronym. So it's spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional well-being. So those SPIRE elements, when we work towards them, when we work for them, that's what's going to lead us to our happiest levels. And it will also maximize our potential, and we're going to see a whole lot of other benefits that come through maximizing these SPIRE elements. So we want to be whole as people, complete as people, and we want to have well-being in these different aspects. And something that is very important to understand is that everything is interconnected. Our bodies are interconnected, and we're going to see that a little bit further down, like our mind and the rest of our bodies and our physical health and our thoughts, but we are also interconnected. What I do will affect you, what you do will affect me, and so on and so on. So being able to have this kind of thinking, systems thinking, also will help us understand how working in each of these elements will contribute not only to us, but to society as a whole. So yeah, so happiness is like the light. Light, we don't see it, but it's comprised by the rainbow colors. And it's the same. It's comprised by cultivating these SPIRE elements. So this is kind of like the theory. We based everything in the science of happiness with the professors I'm studying with. But it's not written on stone. It's not like a one-way street. So each one can add or subtract elements if you feel something doesn't resonate or something resonates that you feel that you need to add. So what's the ultimate goal of life? A lot of people think that success is what leads us to happiness. And a lot of people aspire to stuff, to certain goals, and they think that when they reach them, they're going to be happy. But the reality is that happiness is what leads us to success. So happiness is our highest goal. It's the end towards which all other ends lead. And happiness ought to be our highest goal because it's moral for it. Happiness is good because happy people contribute to society. Happy people share more, are more compassionate, are more giving, are more understanding. So sometimes people feel guilty about being happy or feel like selfish because they think like they just want like happiness. But it's the other way around. Like happy people is the kind of people that we need. So the purpose of studying happiness is to help ourselves and also to help others live happier lives. It's a reinforcing loop. And that's why it's important to understand that interconnected concept, because we need to see the whole picture and we need to understand how people were interconnected through compassion. So this is a quote I really like. Life is too short to be in a hurry. We need to stop, to listen, to be present. And we're going to see in a little bit further down the road, we're going to talk a little bit more about mindfulness. And a tool I wanted to give you from this section is the SPIRE check-in. So this is a really cool tool because it allows you to explore how you're doing in each one of the elements, one of the SPIRE elements on your life, and to assess how it is that you can improve it, or if you want to leave it the way it is, that's fine. So basically what you need to do, it's just score. Do a score from 1 to 10 in each of the elements. And you describe in the first column, why did you give yourself that score? You prescribe in the second column, how can you improve or maintain that score? And this will raise your levels of awareness in order to bring positive change to your life, but reinforcing what is working and improving what's not working. So you can do this in a micro or a macro level. This means that you can do this weekly, daily if you want to, or you can do it once a year, twice a year, depending on how you feel. But it's a very practical and easy tool that anyone can use when they want, and just kind of do a check-in with themselves. So, brief summary, happiness is the ultimate currency and everything is interconnected. Now we're gonna get into each one of the elements. So the first one, the spiritual well-being. So a purposeful life is a spiritual life. We experience spirituality when we do something that is significant to us, something that we find meaningful. But a sense of purpose, we need a sense of purpose, in order to have a real fulfilling and spiritual life. And that doesn't come only through having meaning. We need to put together a strong meaning and high commitment. Having a sense of purpose is essential for everyone's well-being, and today is a huge psychological problem. A lot of people have a void when it comes to meaning because we're working, we're overworked, we are overstimulated, so we're like on this autopilot. And we need, as I was saying before, also to have some space, like pause for a bit, in order to really hear us and understand us and be able to see, okay, this is meaningful for me. And this will allow us also to realize that it's not the attainment of a goal, but the pursuit of it that provides us a purpose. So it's not like, okay, I want that job, I want to get married, I want to have kids. It's the journey that leads us to that. So the goal, having a goal is great because it's a means to start the journey. But once you have a goal, what you need to do is to let it go. And when you let it go, that's when you are going to really enjoy the journey. And something that's really cool is, how do you see what you do daily, like your job, for example? Do you see it as a job? Do you see it as a career? Or do you see it as a calling? Because they're three completely different things. If you see what you do as a job, then you have no expectations from it. You only are waiting for a paycheck, and that's it. If you see it as a career, then you have some more expectations because you can see it as like maybe a little bit of self-development, like an advancement. So, okay, it can be more interesting. But if it's your calling, that is completely aligned with your meaning and it's way more fulfilling. And that's, if you see in the quadrant, that's when you're working on your purpose. And people that have a purpose have a greater sense of gratitude. And having a greater sense of gratitude is directly related with happiness. And in order to see what you do as a calling, we can shift how we think about what we do in our minds. There's a cool study actually done in a hospital with, I think it's the janitors. I think that's the term of the position. And some of them look their job as a job. They would say, I clean, I change bed sheets, this is what I do. And another group, they would say, I help my patients recover. I help my patients have a beautiful space when they wake up. And those people saw their job as their calling. So there's two groups of doing exactly the same thing, and one were way happier than the other. So it's a lot of these things are in our minds. Okay, so goals, strengths, passion, and performance. This is very, it's key. So we need to have purposeful goals, which are those that we're passionate about, the ones that are aligned to our values, the ones that we choose them freely. You know, I want to be a nurse because I'm passionate about healing, about helping, not because my mom is a nurse and like it's in my family, for example. We choose freely. So those are purposeful goals. And strengths, we all have different strengths. We have performance strengths, things that we're good at. Maybe I'm good in maths, and things we're passionate about. I'm passionate about singing. And what we need to do is see where these intersect, and that's our peak potential zone. That's where we're going to experience the happiness and success, because we're going to do something that we love and something that we're good at. So this is a little exercise that we can do when we write, and we need to be honest about what we're good at, because sometimes we are not. And also here we need to understand if we like to do something, if we think we're going to like that, or if it's the idea of that. Like, I want to be a professional tennis player. Like, do I really want to sacrifice all my life and dedicate every single second to training? Or it's the idea of being Steffi Graf, which was my story when I was 9 years old, you know? So we need to be honest and ask ourselves, okay, what do I really want? And we're going to have a list. And after we make that list, we're going to ask ourselves, what do I really, really want? And for this, we need to focus also on our strengths. That's something very important. A lot of people tell us when we're in jobs, they give us feedback about what we need to improve, right? Oh, you're not so good in this, you messed up on that. Well, the reality is we need to learn to manage our weaknesses, yes, but we need to focus on our strengths. That's what's going to give us our advantage, and that's what's going to make us happy, because we're going to do something that we love and that we're good at it. So we're going to feel good. And there's a link of a little tool that I want to leave you to, which is via character. And in that webpage, which is free, you can do a test to map your character strengths. So everyone has 24 character strengths. And what we aim is to work in something where we can use the first 4 ranked character strengths. So anyone can log in and you'll get the results. If you want like a complete report, you have to pay, but you just need the report. I've done it and it's pretty cool. So I encourage you to do it. So I love this quote. He who has a why in life can tolerate almost any how. You know, that's the really like the importance of having a purpose and having meaning. Which? Okay. So by being present, we can elevate the ordinary to the extraordinary. I think we've heard that phrase in different places. And mindfulness is an amazing tool for cultivating presence. And we can do this in a formal practice, you know, setting aside some time, sitting down and meditating, or in an informal practice, which is pretty cool because we have so many opportunities to practice mindfulness informally. For example, when we're brushing our teeth and just like feeling everything that's happening and focusing in brushing our teeth, or listening to this presentation. Are you 100% listening, or are you thinking what you have to do next and maybe, you know, looking at Instagram? So every opportunity is an opportunity to practice mindfulness. And something that is really important and that mindfulness allows us to understand is what are our emotions, especially when they're painful, because emotions are thoughts and physical sensations. And when we're mindful about them, we realize that they have a dimension and a time frame. We're not going to be sad forever, the same way that we're not going to be happy forever. Emotions come and go. So when we learn to manage, especially painful and uncomfortable emotions, we start to pay attention and to live in the now and in the present. And this allows us to change how we see the world and the experiences, because we can be more objective, you know, we can be more real. And it allows us also to disengage from this autopilot where we're living, where we're blocking our emotions and just like acting. And when we manage to do this, we manage to find this meaningful purpose. We can also find our flow, which I'm not sure if you've heard of this term, but flow is a state when you're fully immersed in an experience that it's rewarding in and of itself. It's when you're doing something and time just flies by and you have no idea what happened and you're so into it that it's like bliss. That's like what it feels to me. And to experience flow, you need to find something where challenge meets skill, you know, it has to have a good amount, like the right amount of both. You have to have meaningful goals, And you have to have clear and fast feedback. These 3 characteristics will allow you to find flow in what you do. I think I skipped one. Oh yeah, no, sorry. So our purposeful life is a spiritual life, and the ordinary is elevated to the extraordinary through mindful presence. This is what we should remember about the spiritual well-being. Okay, physical well-being. So the holistic mindset, and it's written correctly. We want to see everything as a whole, right? So there's a lot of people have a dualistic mindset where mind and body are separated. Psychologists work with the mind, doctors work with the body, when in truth, it's all, again, interconnected, and we have to see this holistic approach, which is something that we see a lot in the East, right? Am I translating right? You know, in Asia, it's like there's this holistic approach. So we need to have a holistic mindset to understand the interrelation between mind and body, because pure psychology, focusing only on the mind, or pure medicine focusing only on the body, compromises our ability to heal both mentally and physically. So there is this really cool story, which is the Dream Mile, the 4-minute mile story, where it shows the powerful connection between mind and body. And it basically is that in the, I'm not sure if it's the 40s or the 60s, no one could run 1 mile in less than a minute. And than 4 minutes, I'm sorry, 1 mile in less than 4 minutes. And it was researchers, scientists would say it's impossible for the human body to run 1 mile in less than 4 minutes. And there was this guy who was a runner, an elite runner, but not the best, he was good. And he was a researcher in Oxford University, and he said, I'm going to run 1 mile in less than 4 minutes. And he was training and training and training and visualizing and working on these limiting beliefs. And he did it. He was the first person to run the Dream Mile. And after he ran that Dream Mile, tens of other athletes started to run the mile in less than 4 minutes. And that demonstrates the power of our minds. It's amazing. So it's really important for us to understand that, how our minds can create a reality, and also the power of visualization, because visualization can lead us to great places, but it requires vivid focusing on both the journey and the destination. It's not all about, I want to be that person, I want to reach that goal. We need to visualize step by step everything that's going to take us where we want to be. I don't know if you guys have heard, for example, how Michael Phelps, he used to visualize every stroke when he would swim, you know? And of course, additionally, we need to put in the work. We're not going to visualize acing an exam and not studying for it. We're going to fail. So it's a bit of both. So yeah, we need to work on these limiting beliefs. We need also to work on the emotional blockages that sometimes fear of suffering we have, because they will cause us pain. When we suppress something, when we suppress an emotion, when we repress an emotion, I'm not sure about the word, they'll come out and our body hurts, you know, we get headaches, we get our shoulders hurt, or back hurts. And that happens a lot when we don't see this like integration in our mind and body, when we don't acknowledge our emotions and our feelings. So we need to look at them and let them flow. Something to do with painful emotions, uncomfortable emotions, something that works, it's to talk about them and to write about them. Not so much to think about them, because when we talk and when we write, we analyze, and that helps to process. And another thing is to act as if. This interconnection between mind and body also means that our bodies affect our minds. So for example, when we practice yoga, we do warriors, and warriors means strength. And if we want to have a powerful class, that we're going to finish this class feeling like we can do everything, feeling courageous, feeling strong, we're going to put a lot of warriors in that class, because there's a link between our physiological state and our, it has a physical parallel. So we can also use our bodies. We can smile if we want to feel happy, and maybe we're not feeling happy, we can just smile and practice it, and that will help. Okay, the blue zones. The blue zones is something we should watch, because they're like the best people to, I think, admire, in the sense that in the blue zones, the residents are the ones that live the longest. And we need to learn why. So one thing to understand is we need to obey nature. We need to understand nature. And there's a universal nature that applies to everyone. Everyone needs to sleep, to eat, to rest, to touch others, etc., etc. But we also have our particular nature. So first we need to understand who we are and what we need in order to be, to act with integrity towards who we are. So nobody's gonna tell us what we need to do, only we know. But we do need to watch for the best, because the average is the average. The average describes, the best prescribes. The best is like the best examples, the tips that we need to get. And people in the blue zone have a purpose, have really meaningful social connections, are close to nature all the time, and they have a huge sense of belonging. And it has been studied through them, from people that have left the blue zones, for example, how life length is dependent only 25% on genes and 75% on the choices we make. And this also affects not only length, but quality. People in the blue zones are super healthy. They have a great quality of life. So nature, to be commanded, must be obeyed. We need to understand and respect our natural needs in order to thrive. And here I'm going to give you a little gift, which is the Wonder Drug, which is completely legal and completely free. And it's these 4 components: nutrition, exercise, rest and recovery, and touch. So these are, for example, people in the blue zones, especially in Japan, they have the 80% rule, eat until you're 80% full. Or mindful eating, which is a great practice. Eating really slowly, savoring everything, smelling, feeling touching everything, and choosing healthy foods, whole foods, fresh foods, veggies, nuts. We need to, nutrition is so important for our health, and we need to find balance, but definitely healthy choices. Exercise 30 minutes a day, 30 minutes 3 times a week. It's the least we could do, but it's good. It's not like, oh, that's really poor. No, just if you are not doing exercise, or if you want to help someone, if that person can do half an hour a day, 3 times a week, that's really good. Physical frustration can lead to psychological frustration, and this can lead into depression, because really not exercising is like taking a depressant. There are so many studies that show how exercise have the same effect as taking some pills in some cases, and even how much they last. The impact of exercising lasts longer than depressants. So exercising is cool. Rest and recovery. So a lot of people see stress as a bad thing, and there are studies about this too. Those people that are super stressed and see stress as something negative have higher risks, even of getting sick, and even of dying, 43%, if I'm not wrong. But people that see stress as potentially enhancing you, like something that like it's like your motor to do stuff. People that see stress as something positive are way healthier. They are even healthier, like even if they're feeling a lot of stress, they can be healthier than people that feel little stress but see it as negative. So it's in our minds. How do we see stress? We can reframe like the challenges that are ahead of us to see them as an opportunity to learn, as an opportunity to challenge ourselves, you know, all these things that cause us stress, and just like turn the table on it. And also, the problem is not that stress itself, it's the lack of recovery. We live again in a world full of like, when we don't have time for anything, full of like lights and like advertising and FOMO all the time. But we need to rest at a micro level, at a mid level, at a macro level. So every day, if someone is working in an office, every 2 hours, it's super important to take a walk for 30 seconds. I'm not saying like an hour, you know, yeah, once a day, take a longer walk, but stretch, move. At a mid-level, take 1 day off a week. It's super important. 1 day off where you're just like some TLC for yourself. And at a macro level, take 1-2 weeks per year. So JP Morgan, who was one of the biggest investment bankers, he used to say, I can do a year's work in 9 months, but not in 12. Because if he works 12 months nonstop, he's gonna burn out. So rest and recover. And the other thing is touch. Touch is super important. It alleviates pain, can overcome injuries. It helps with the immune system, with the physical and cognitive development. It's very important in children, especially. So touch is something that we've lost a lot. Like everyone is about like my personal space and don't be that close. And it varies depending on where you are. But touch is, it's really nice, you know, and it's a two-way street. When you touch someone, you're giving, but you're also receiving. So it's important to have that in mind, but also it's important to know who, I mean, there has to be consent, you know, even if it's a handshake. So this is a tricky one because, you know, you have to know who you are interacting with, but it's very important that we incorporate touch in our lives. So mind and body are connected, and a healthy life requires adherence to our nature. That's the message for that one. Now, intellectual well-being. Okay, so this one's a little bit complex, I think. Let's see how it goes. So ReflAction is basically reflection and action, which is this interaction between being curious and being open. Everyone is curious by nature. It's part of our constitution. But sometimes we have forgotten that. And sometimes we associate curiosity and being intellectual with reading books. And it's way like, the spectrum is way bigger than that. So we need to rekindle with the love of learning that everyone has. And openness is about taking risks and trying and being in the real world and just like going for it. So when we mix curiosity and openness, we try and we reflect. And that leads us into a growth spiral, which is what we're looking for. To cultivate more openness, we need to fail more. We need to be open to fail. So we need to just like embrace it. Don't be scared of it. And also, something that's very important is that we assume a beginner's mind. I love this quote. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert, there are few. So when we see life with a beginner's mind, we have endless options. And with that, so if we approach life with a beginner's mind and we're open to failing, like amazing things can happen because we're just gonna keep on trying, you know? Like Thomas Edison has been one of the biggest inventors. No one has more patents than him, like over 10,000, I think. And he would say, I failed my way to success, because he would just try and nothing would stop him. And once, even when he was interviewed about, I'm not sure if it was the battery or what invention, that it was like 10,000 times that he was doing it, he's like, I haven't failed like 1,000 times. I've learned 1,000 times that it doesn't work, you know. So he would just reframe that and keep going. What happens? What's the worst thing that would happen if we fail? And also something that's important is that positive psychology and the field of happiness is about focusing on what works. So by asking the right questions, we're going to find the answers that we want. By asking the right questions, we are able to see the glass half full instead of half empty, because questions create our reality by defining our reality. If I'm asking in a situation, what didn't work, I'm going to focus on that. But if I'm asking, okay, so what went well, I'm going to focus on that. So everything shifts. And yes and yet are two keywords that are great, because when we start to do something, yes is what starts us off. Yes, I want to do it. Yes, I'm going to climb the Everest. But what keeps us going is yet. It's the being patient and persevere. Yes, I'm doing that. I'm not there yet, but I'm going to keep going. And also, well, multiple intelligence. I love this because according to Gardner, there are 9 forms of intelligence. And this is pretty cool because, as I was saying before, we associate intelligence to verbal, linguistic, and logical mathematical, which are the first 2 ones that I'm writing. But there are 9 types of intelligence. And everyone has like 2, 3 of them that predominate, but we have a mix of most. And what we need to do is to find out which one is our form of intelligence, or our forms of intelligence. Because happiness is not dependent on how intelligent one is, but how we use our intellect. So if, for example, I'm naturalistic environmental, I want to be in nature. And that is going to make me happy. And I'm going to be curious in nature, and I'm going to thrive in nature by observing the birds, the plants, etc. And I'm going to fulfill myself and my need to learn and to grow through it. And slow reading, which can be applied to actually slow reading, but I also apply it to life in general, is again about stopping, about taking our time to learn, to integrate, learning to slow down while we are studying in any of these intelligences also translates to our relationships. We are so used to fast reading, wanting fast reading classes, just like browsing the web, that when it comes to relationships, we hop on and hop off from one to another because we are not cultivating that patience and that just like sitting in one place and getting the most of it and understanding it. If we can't sit and read a good book, you know, or observe a work of art that is complex, how can we sit and understand a human being that nothing is more complex than a human being? So it's a great practice. And simplifying is another thing. A lot of people say, and I used to be one of them, that when I'm under pressure, I work at my best. I'm more productive and I just like do stuff. And this has been studied and it's a myth, complete myth. Multitasking, it's harmful for us. Multitasking can, it actually subtracts IQ points from us. For example, when we're working and we have the Gmail on or email on, and we're thinking about that while we're doing another thing, it's the equivalent as if we have lost 10 points in our IQ, which is equivalent as if we wouldn't have slept all night. So we need to learn to simplify and do one thing at a time. And that actually gives us time affluence, which is something that people think it's the complete opposite. So it's the abilities, not the disabilities, that count. Focus on what are your intelligence. And as I was saying before, what are your strengths? This is a couple tools also about self-analysis and journaling. So introspection is very important, but in moderation. We don't want to just like go on and on and on. But it's great when dealing with difficult experience, as I was saying before, to write about them and talk about them. When we journal about different difficult experiences, it will contribute to our physical and our mental well-being because it gives us a sense of coherence. We understand what happened. We understand how to manage them. We understand why it happened. We give it meaning. So it helps us a lot to put things into perspective. And journaling in general, it's actually a great booster of our immune system. It improves our mood, it improves our social relations, it makes us more open and outgoing. So journaling is in general a good practice that anyone can do anytime. Also, something positive is visualizing and reliving peak experiences is also a very powerful technique because we kind of like all the positive emotions that we experience come afloat again. So sometimes if we're not at the best mood, just like sitting and visualizing something beautiful, something that happened yesterday or 25 years ago and just reliving it, it's a great tool to just like boost our mood. So curiosity and openness help us make the most of what life has to offer, and engaging in deep learning fulfills our potential as rational animals. Now, almost done. Relational well-being. Okay, so everyone, I think, is very interested in relationships because we have all kinds of relationships all the time. And while most people know how important relationships are for their lives, most of us don't prioritize them. We don't live in accordance with this knowledge. Relationships contribute highly to individual and national happiness. It contributes to physical health. It contributes to organizational success. Relationships are the #1 predictor of happiness and health. And this is a study that was done with Harvard University. It's an ongoing study that has been going on for more than 70 or 75 years, where they followed men throughout their lives, men from different socioeconomical backgrounds, and the happier men were the ones that had the tighter relationships. It's a beautiful study. I think there's a TED Talk about it. You guys can Google it. So something that's important for healthy relationships is authenticity and positivity. So you need to be genuine. You need to be real. People want real people. And you need to be also positive, kind, and generous. You know, if a friend or if your partner tells you something that they're happy about, celebrate with them. Really pay attention. Not just say, oh, cool, and then turn, but engage. And make relationships a priority. Like give them the space that they deserve and make them real. Now, everything is through WhatsApp, through Facebook, like chats. Nothing makes relationships more real than having like a one-to-one conversation in person. And this is the foundation for empathy, which is something that is also being lost in these times. Well, since like maybe 10 years ago, I think. Like social media has a lot to do with this. So, and this is very important for children, for example. Levels of depression have gone up. People like kids or adolescents with this sense of like, I do things on my own, and like loneliness have gone up. So face-to-face interactions are key. 1,000 Facebook buddies are no substitute for one best friend forever. So when it comes to couples, a lot of people need validation, for example. They need to know that they are loved unconditionally. But that's not what we need to seek. Because validation and approval, yes, they're important, but the foundation for love and for passion is actually intimacy. Relationships are very important for personal growth and maturity, and they can get better over time. A lot of people think that when they're married for a really long time, then things go downwards or they stagnate, but that's a myth. They can get better over time. And flourishing couples cultivate the relationship by doing these 4 things. They do things together, they try new things, they engage in activities that are interdependent, and they find meaning in what they do together. So these are practices that everyone can incorporate. Intimacy is key. Be authentic, letting yourself be seen, which of course comes with so much vulnerability and is scary as hell, but that's the foundation for love and for passion and for our relationship to thrive. And conflict is very important in a relationship because that allows for people to grow and for the relationship to grow and to strengthen. So when we encounter a small conflict, it's very important to address it because eventually big conflicts are going to arise. There's these terms that are called gridlocks. Gridlocks will always happen, and they are usually about money, in-laws, sex, and how to raise children. And those are like 4 big gridlocks. And gridlocks happen every few years in relationships. So if you are avoiding conflict since the beginning, when a gridlock comes, the possibility that you're going to thrive together and that you're going to get over it together are slim. If from the beginning you use conflict as a way to improve communication, when the gridlock comes, you guys are going to be way stronger. So I love this quote. Be yourself, everyone else is taken. So something important also regarding relationships, it's that self-love and love for others, it's a two-way street. We think sometimes that self-love is being selfish and egoist, but it's not that. We need to love ourselves and to be able to love ourselves in order to love others and to be seem altruistic and selfless. It's a self-reinforcing loop. Love ourselves first in order to give. And especially in the Western culture, there's this schism between love of the self and love for other, but it has to be together. It has to come together. So in order to give, we have to give to ourselves. And something that's very important in relationships also is that becoming independent and becoming intimate are two sides of the same coin. And this is what differentiation is all about. It's a lifelong process which will lead us to cultivate this self-validated intimacy. That's key to thrive in any relationship. And this happens when, for example, in a conflict, we hold on to ourselves as well as to the relationship. And that will make us grow. Relationships are people growing machines if we learn how to be with them and manage them. So one little tool here is the spell of anonymity. It's just imagine yourself that no one sees you, as if you have the Harry Potter invisibility cloak. And you ask yourself, what do I really, really want? No one's gonna judge me. No one's gonna tell me anything, and sit with yourself and discover where you wanna go. And this will help you understand who you are, and help you pursue what you really want. Cultivate self-validation, be able to be independent, differentiate from your partner, but also be together in the relationship with him. So relationships are crucial for a full and fulfilling life, and the foundations of a healthy relationship with others is first a healthy relationship with oneself. Okay, and emotional well-being, the last spiral element. I feel like I'm in a marathon sprints, I don't know. So this concept I love, which is permission to be human. We need to give ourselves permission to be human. When we do so, we open up ourselves to experience all the emotions of the spectrum of emotions, and we experience less pain and more pleasure. A lot of people are afraid of painful emotions, but they don't understand that painful and pleasurable emotions both travel through the same pipeline. So we need to accept both of them. And for example, when we encounter hardship, that we always will, we have a choice. We have a choice to accept, to look, to stop, and to make the best decision of how to act based on what's happening. And that will lead us to growth. When we repress emotions, it's when we suffer. So pain is inevitable, but suffering is avoidable. We just need to let the emotions flow. What happens? So if I tell you to close your eyes, for example, for a couple of seconds, and think about a pink elephant, and don't think about a pink elephant, I'm sorry. So don't think about the pink trunk, don't think about the pink, like big ears, don't think about the pink tail. What happened? Pretty sure the elephant was like the one that I put there in the presentation, huge pink elephant. So that happens with emotions. When we repress them, they will come stronger, and probably they're not even as big. So something that's important to understand is courage is not about having fear, it's about having fear and going ahead anyway. So what happens with pleasurable emotions? Yes, we want them, but also there are barriers to pleasurable emotions. Who would have thought some people have a sense of unworthiness? I think most of us at some point fall into that trap. And that's because we live in we have this culture where we're not good enough. Nothing is good enough. We're never fast enough, smart enough, thin enough, whatever enough. So we have a sense of unworthiness. And also what happens is that a lot of people actually think that happiness is a zero-sum game, that there's just one pie, but that's not true. Happiness, it's a positive-sum game, and happiness is contagious. That's where the mirror neurons come in. You know, when you meet someone in the street and that person smiles, a lot of the time happens that you smile back. Those are our mirror neurons, just like, you know, relating in a level that we maybe don't understand. But that's also kind of like the backbone of empathy, being able to understand and register emotions from another person. So we need to accept pleasurable emotions, and we need to have happiness as our goal. Also, pleasurable emotions allows us to break from negative loops. When something happened and we're feeling bad, we can go into a downward spiral. We can feel bad, we can feel sad, we can lose hope. And we can even get depressed, because depression is sadness without hope. But when something bad happens and we allow for pleasurable emotions, we break that cycle, and we can turn that into a virtuous cycle. So we can have our list of pleasure boosters, for example, exercising, reading, dancing, watching movies, listening to music, whatever. You have your list and you practice them. And also there are gratitude exercises, having a gratitude journal, and every night before going to sleep, writing a few things that you're grateful for that week, for that day or that week. Or in the morning, writing things you're looking forward for that day. Writing a gratitude letter to someone that you feel grateful for, and going and reading that letter to them. That's a really powerful thing, for example, that strengthens each one and the relationship. So gratitude is one of my favorite tools in the world, to be honest. It increases happiness, optimism, productivity, generosity. It strengthens our immune system, and it's contagious, and it's a virtuous cycle. So gratitude should be our best friend. When we're feeling down, close our eyes, and wherever we are, if we are listening to a bird, be grateful for that bird. If we had a glass of water, be grateful for that glass of water. Like, we need to stop taking things for granted. And just thanks. You mainly feel the way you think. So yeah, that's what we were like. Our thoughts make our reality. And okay, to finish, this is something I think very powerful, which is hope theory. So hope theory bases on willpower and way power. Willpower, I want to do this. Way power is I know how to do this. When we put them together, we have long-term flourishing. And what happens, as I was saying, our thoughts become our emotions. So usually there's an event, an evaluation of the event, and then there's an emotion. So we need to really observe what's happening. Oh, there's an event. I have an ice cream, I dropped the ice cream. I evaluate the event. Oh, the ice cream fell. I'm so clumsy. The emotion is, oh, I'm just like, I suck. Or it can be, oh, like the event can be, instead of I'm so clumsy, it's like, oh, I got distracted. The emotion, bummer, I'll get a new ice cream. So the same event can have a different like thought from it. So we can change our thoughts. And what happens is the three most common irrational thoughts is that we magnify stuff and we make things permanent and pervasive. I will always fail. I suck. We minimize it. We have a tunnel vision. So I did this presentation and maybe I messed up in one slide and I will only think about how I messed that slide instead of all the presentation, you know? Or we make up stuff. And this is very a tricky one, because if one has to do with personalizing or blame, which is, for example, if you're in a toxic relationship, it's like, okay, it's my fault that he's being abusive with me. Or emotional reasoning, which is when you you become the emotion, and you can't separate yourself from the emotion. Like I feel guilty or I am guilty. So these are the 3 M's are important to watch, and we can reframe the experience from threatening to challenging, for example, and radically change the way we experience it just by cognitively reframing what happened. Right? Where was it? Oh yeah. Okay, so all emotions are legitimate, acceptable, part of being human. Let them flow. And emotions are the outcome of our thoughts and deeds and inform our thoughts and deeds. So to finish, I just wanted to leave you with this message. Happiness is your birthright, and you have everything within to be so. You just need to be open, you need to connect, be curious, and put the work. So yeah, that's it. I left this just in case anyone has questions or comments. They can send me a DM on Instagram. I think it's the easiest way. I hope it was clear.
Thank you so much, Steph. Thank you.
No, thank you for
wow.
the
Yeah, such a rich presentation. I really appreciate you have so much wisdom and knowledge to share, like all of the science and the theory and the philosophy behind happiness, as well as really practical strategies and tools and practices that we can use to build happiness in our lives. So I took lots of notes. I mean, but I think, as you said before, there's like 6 months worth of learning and work here that you've really summarized down into 1 hour. So I think this is a really rich resource, and we're so blessed to have this as a free resource. So thank you so much for sharing it with the community, and I know that we will all benefit so much from all of this. And I'm really glad that you shared your contact here, because I think for those of us who are interested in doing more work with happiness in our lives and yeah, going deeper into this, it would be really great for those who are interested to reach out to you and maybe utilize some of your coaching services as well. So please, for anyone who's watching, please do that. Reach out to Steph, because she does one-on-one work as well. So if there's anything that piqued your interest or you feel would be useful for you from this presentation, I definitely would recommend connecting with Steph and doing more work one-on-one with her. So thank you so much for sharing with us, and yeah, for taking your time and sharing your wisdom. We're really appreciative. Thank you.